you have refused to really critically analyze the recipe. And so what I encourage you to do is that when it comes to not just knowledge and information and skill, but also what is considered to be success, I encourage you to have the courage to really look at the recipe. And if you want to use the recipe analogy, I'm all for the home cooked meal. I think the home cooked meal is going to be a whole lot healthier and much more appropriate than than the meal that's made in somebody else's restaurant, especially made in the restaurant of somebody who's been trying to kill you for several hundred years. So that's my 2 cents on the topic, and I really hope will really understand. And I did a video about this, and somebody made this comment, and it wasn't mine, but I agree with it. And he said that we think that homeschooling is this really risky experiment, and what he doesn't realize is that, or what most of us don't realize, is that the public school system is the actual experiment. That actually we've been homeschooling for thousands of years, and then the public schools came along, the last 120 years or so, and we're thinking that that's the standard when really that's the experiment. So, I encourage you to think carefully about the information and knowledge that you apply, the same way you think about the food that you eat. Everything when you talk about consciousness, consciousness is basically awareness. It's like if I just took a nap and when I was sleeping, I was unconscious. Now I'm conscious and I'm aware. I see what's going on. I know if it's raining. I know if it's cold. I know what other people are doing inside the house. So the same thing is true when you talk about your finances. You have to be financially conscious if you ever want to have wealth. If you operate in an unconscious capacity, you will not have wealth. You have to be conscious when it comes to the food that you eat and your health. If you're unconscious about your health or food you eat or how much you exercise and you just do what everybody else is doing and do what they tell you to do, then you're going to fail. You're going to lose. If you operate on autopilot in those key areas, you are going to lose. The system is not designed for you to end up with any kind of a surplus. It's designed to deplete you and make you into a tool of capitalism. Relationship consciousness, just consciousness when it comes to anything that matters for you. So I would, maybe that's the word for today that's on my mind is the word consciousness. And so today, what we're going to cover in Powernomics, which can be found at powernomics.com, written by Dr. Claude Anderson, is he's going to talk a little bit today about black leadership. And I'd like to ask y'all, give me a yes or no. How many of you feel black leadership is just woefully inadequate? You know, um, Black leadership is absolutely terrible, in my opinion, in this country. I think that black leadership is an embarrassment. I don't know about y'all, but I sometimes sit back and I wonder what happened. Like, I just wonder, how did our leadership get so bad? Why do we feel like there's nobody there representing us? Why do we just look up and we look in Congress, we look on TV, we look in other places, but then at the same time, that they will declare these individuals to be leaders, and you're like, what is that person doing, and why are they repeating the talking points of somebody else, and doing weird things that I don't understand, and I don't get me wrong. I mean, I know we don't all see on the same page in certain topics, right? There may be some things where you feel one way, I might feel a different way, and that's okay. Diversity of thought is important. But it's just kind of weird to just sort of see all these people and I'm like, who declared that person to be a leader of my community? We have nothing in common. I don't know this guy. I don't know this woman, and they're doing weird stuff. And so many interesting things are happening in society where I know that there has to be like this hidden hand to kind of shaping things in a certain way. For example, economically, there's always definitely a hidden hand when it comes to economics. I can tell you that as a financial expert, with all these stories about the Rothschilds and people like that kind of manipulating the global economy. That's completely within reason. Because they understand that to some extent money is kind of an illusion, and that illusion can be manipulated just like artificial intelligence or animation can be manipulated, a movie can be manipulated, movie script, things like that. Um, but here's the other thing though. Um, you also have other areas, in terms of social changes that have occurred in this society where, you have certain movements that just seem to pop out of nowhere. I believe these movements are in some ways driven by, again, the hidden hand, where they sort of understand human beings like algorithms. You are an algorithm. They can hack a human being. They can get you to think about things in a certain way. They can predict how you're going to respond to certain information. They understand how you operate in the face of fear, things like that. And as a result, it allows them to move forward with whatever agenda they might happen to be. Some of you may have saw a glimpse of this during the pandemic, which was really strange because you suddenly had these Harvard-educated doctors that were being called quacks and disseminators of misinformation when they simply had an opinion that differed from Dr. Fauci or the pharmaceutical companies, or even if you look, I think I saw the other day, and I'm not here to judge or say that it's right or wrong. It's up to everybody to make their own decision. But did anybody see Sports Illustrated had on their swimsuit issue? They literally had a guy as a woman, like I guess a trans person. No disrespect if you're trans or you know anybody that's trans. I'm not disrespecting, but they literally just plopped out this dude on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. So the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue is kind of the white people's version of the Jet Beauty of the Week. Like imagine if the Jet Beauty of the Week was like named Tyrone, and you're like, wait a minute, who said that we want to have Tyrone? The Jet Beauty of the Week ain't never been named Tyrone, but suddenly the Jet Beauty of the Week is a dude. So Sports Illustrated put a guy on the cover. And again, I'm not one of these people that runs around getting mad because somebody's trans or not trans or all this. I don't even want to talk about that too much because I don't want to, hurt people's feelings. I think, that there is a conversation to be had about all that, but it's just so fascinating to me how suddenly that didn't just sort of become one of the conversations. That almost became like the conversation. That gender and sexuality kind of jumped the line as it pertains to social justice issues. Like suddenly, out of the blue, all the other issues that should have been addressed a long time ago, things like reparations, stuff like that, gets pushed to the back of the bus in exchange for, who are you having sex with and why? And, and does your 4-year-old really need to get a surgery to become a girl at the age of 4? And I'm gonna tell you, it actually hit home for me recently. Our middle daughter had a track meet and ran against a child who was very, shall we say, the young ladies were very uncomfortable with what they saw. Let me just say that, and I'm not gonna say more. And I'm gonna let you just guess the rest. But literally, there was somebody that was running, and my wife said, "Yeah, that girl did not look like a girl. That girl looked different." And nothing wrong with being different, but let me just say this: this person they blew the socks off the other girls. I mean, kicked them straight in the ass, like ran through them like they wasn't even there. And all the other girls were just demoralized. They were kind of mad. They were mad. They were sad. They were like, damn, like, this isn't fair. And so I'll admit, as one of the dads, I kind of felt some kind of way. I was like, wait a minute, this ain't right. So I just kind of really think, generally speaking, here's the idea. Here's the point I want to make before we start reading Empowernomics. There are agendas that just seem to pop out of nowhere, but they are agendas that are well planned. Somebody orchestrates these agendas. There are people that are very conscious about the direction that they're going to take your life and take your existence and your struggle and your reality and your issues. So it's important for you to be conscious about the same thing, right? It's important for you to be conscious about your health, your mental and physical health. There are ways to research, ways to have better mental health, better physical health, all that stuff. In fact, in the Black Business School, I'd love to mention that we created the first ever Black Financial Therapy Department where we partner with the best Black therapists to figure out the psychological barriers to building Black wealth. It's very psychological. It's very important that you be conscious about your physical health. A lot of the food that you are told to eat is endorsed by Big Pharma. It's endorsed by the Food and Drug Administration. It's endorsed by the food lobby. And I never forget when Michelle Obama came into office and she tried to get America to be healthy. That was her thing. They always give the first lady some little project to work on, but she's not little by any stretch. She could have been president herself, very intelligent. And she wanted people to eat healthier, right? And so when she came in with that agenda, the food lobby basically came in and derailed all that. They basically did something behind the scenes to pressure the administration to the point where Michelle Obama's message went from exercise and diet to just exercise. She could not criticize the food anymore. She made a comment about how she loves McDonald's French fries, but knows that she shouldn't eat a whole lot because they're not good for her, and that got nixed real fast. And in fact, I saw there was a point where they went to the world. I think the World Health Organization wanted to change the daily allowance of sugar in your diet. As you all know, how many of y'all know that sugar is really the devil when it comes to just health ailments and all that stuff? How many of y'all realize this? I mean, every study I'm reading, I'm just learning sugar is the freaking devil. I mean, that's modern day crack cocaine in your cereal. And I like sugar, and it's crazy. It's hard to get away from it because it's in everything. Well, anyway, so the World Health Organization came out with something where they were going to change the daily recommended allowance of sugar. Like, okay, instead of having this much, you should have that much. And so the food lobby goes and puts pressure on the White House, and I believe Obama might have been in office at the time, and they owed the World Health Organization, like, I want to say $500 million or something like that. And the White House basically told the World Health Organization, if you change the daily recommended allowance of sugar, we're not going to pay you your money. You will not get your money if you tell people to eat less sugar. And there was another example. My doctor mentioned it to me. You know, they have those food pyramids. Anybody ever seen a food pyramid? I'm gonna try to see if I can find one online so you can kind of look at it. Let me see here. The food pyramid. Okay. The food pyramid is where they kind of have like the base foods that you should be eating, the most healthy foods like at the bottom, and then I guess other foods you add to the food pyramid or something like that. And they used to put. I want to say that there was a doctor that had to sue them to get them to take like bread and stuff off of the bottom of the food pyramid or something like that. That basically this he said something about, I want to say it was some of y'all got to help me because I'm still learning. God is not through with me yet, but I want to say that it was something in your bread that can just be worse than sugar. I think it was carbs. I think my doctor said carbs. He said carbs are like just as bad as sugar. They just turn into sugar or something like that. And so if they had carbs at the bottom of the food pyramid and were telling everybody to eat these carbs, and this doctor was like, hell no, like this is hurting people, and they didn't want to change it, so he had to sue them to get them to change that. So anyway, so conscious eating is important for your physical health. Your wealth, you must be financially conscious in this society. You saw the other day, I did a podcast episode where we talked about Gabrielle Union, and she confessed on an interview that she is heavily financially insecure. She worries all the time about money. She splits the bills 50-50 with Dwayne Wade, her husband, and it stresses her out, keeps her up, and she's always worried about the next movie. Is it going to make enough money and all that stuff? And I remember thinking that's so sad if it's true. So either Gabrielle has some financial trauma as a child that she hasn't fully addressed, where no matter how much money she has, she still worries about being broke again. That's a real thing that happens to a lot of us. Or or they're approaching their finances in the wrong way, because there's no reason really, if you do things right financially, by the time you're about 45, you should be thinking about retiring. You should be going to work because you want to, not because you have to. Now, I know some of you aren't in that position, and maybe you're in your 50s or 60s. I'm not here to make you feel bad like that at all. What I'm here to talk about is not the year 2023. I'm here to talk about the year 2053. I'm here to talk about when that 4-year-old grandchild of yours is 34 years old, and how you have a whole 30 years to get them in a position where they are financially secure and financially aware, right? That is your job. The school system will not do that. The school system's goal and job is to turn them into, as Rockefeller called it when he funded the school system, he said, we don't need independent thinkers. We need people that are going to get up and go to work every day, because I need workers in my factory so I can make more money. That's why Rockefeller invested so much money in the public school system. It does not reward creativity. It does not reward risk taking. It rewards people who sit down, shut up, and follow instructions and then do their job. So effectively, by using that next 30 years, doing things like, again, go to my website, boycewatkins.com. There's the $5 a day investing plan. That's right there on my website. It's free. If you want it in book form, you can get the book on Amazon as well, and get them prepared, and then invest for them. Invest that $5 a day consistently, set it on autopilot, but it's $35 a week actually, or you can do $140 a month. It doesn't matter if you do it daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever, but just do it consistently and never sell that stock and buy into the S&P 500. And then by the time that child's 25 or 30, they're financially free. At that point, nobody on earth that has $250,000 in the bank has to go to work for anybody. Nobody with $250,000 in the bank is going to be stressed out and staying up all night because they they're worried if they can come up with $2,000 to pay the rent. Nobody goes through that, right? And also another part of financial consciousness to think about too is when you talk about conscious family and considering how family is connected to financial security, you've got to stop letting people convince you that it's okay for your families to just fall apart. Because basically, when you are by yourself and you're struggling financially, sometimes it's because you're doing a job as one person that's easier done when you have two or three or four people working together. So compare one person, one single parent with three kids working two or three jobs, trying to raise the kids, manage the house, and make the money. That's a lot of work. That's a whole lot of work, right? Now compare that to a family where you got a husband and wife. You got two or three productive kids that are all working as part of the family business, and then maybe you've got somebody's sibling or an uncle or a grandparent that's in there too that's helping out. Then suddenly you can live as nice as you want to. If you think about it, right? You imagine a super nice house. Imagine a mansion that costs I don't know, $8,000 a month to live in. That's easily affordable if you're spreading that cost amongst several people. And so I would encourage you to be conscious and creative about how you live. People make fun of those groups where they get together and multiple families get together and live in the same house or live on the same land. That is the wave of the future. That's the best way, getting affiliated with some group of people that where you're helping each other to survive is going all the way back to slavery. That's how we all got together as slaves, as groups of slaves, and escaped to the north, as opposed to trying to do it all by yourself. If you're running away from the plantation by yourself, your chances of survival are much lower than if you've got three or four qualified, maybe five, six, maybe 10 qualified, skilled people that are all working toward the same objective. Okay. So that's my thought for today as we begin. And I hope that that's helpful to you in your journey toward wealth, health, happiness, success, all these things that I want you to have. All right. So I'm going to start reading here on page 218. I'm reading Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson. You can get a copy of his book at powernomics.com. If you already have copies of his books, I hope you'll get his library packs. And if you have extra money, buy several. Just buy a bunch. Support that family. It has done so much for the community. I hope that we will support them and just give the books away. Just keep stacks of them and just give them away, to the kids in the neighborhood and all that. Become a teacher of this. Become an evangelist. Empower yourself. Don't be scared. Don't sort of feel like you have to sit there and just absorb. Become the light that others follow in the space that you're in, and that space will be a little bit brighter because you are there. All right, manifest, the greatness that you're supposed to have. All right, so let me start reading here. Okay, so let's see, somebody asked about Dallas. Yeah, I'll be in Dallas tomorrow. I'm flying in the 19th and the 20th. That's when we're doing the Black Wealth Summit. So if you still want to fly to Dallas or you live in the area, feel free to join us. My wife will be there. And also Tim Jackson, who's a real estate expert in the area. He's going to be there too. Really good guy. All right. So political action step number 11, initiate a national leadership renaissance for empowerment-oriented Black leadership. So Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about Black leadership here. And let's see what he has to say. He says, Black America is in the throes of a full-bloom leadership crisis. Circle that word, crisis. Just when 36 million Black Americans need leadership the most. Black America is poised to slide into political and economic oblivion as a minority in an increasingly pluralistic and competitive society. Mind you, Dr. Anderson said this 30 years ago. So this is not new. What he's doing is he's writing from the perspective of the mid to early 1990s, and he's predicting what's going to happen after the year 2000. He's predicting what's going to happen in 2015, what's going to happen in 2023. And I want you to listen to what he predicts. And I want you to ask yourself, is this what has occurred? Is this what you're seeing right now? So he says, this is a position of weakness that Black America has to overcome in order to survive and prosper in the 21st century. Black society must raise up a new and different kind of institutional leadership. Institutional leadership, this is page 218, Pamela. Institutional leadership is not one super Negro who is running around bragging about him being the leader of all Black people. It's not an Al Sharpton type figure. It's not some demagogue. It's not somebody that's running around reminding you that they're better than you and smarter than you. It's an institution. Institutions, sometimes they have no face. Again, I want to ask you, who is the primary leader of the Jewish community? Does the Jewish community have power? Let's start with that question. Do you believe that the Jewish community has economic power? Give me a yes or no in the chat if you believe that the Jewish community has a tremendous amount of economic and political power. What do y'all think? What do you think? Yes or no? Do you think the Jewish community has power? You think Kanye was just tripping when he said that? I think Kanye was right about that. I didn't agree with Kanye on everything, but that was one area where I agreed with him. Okay, yeah, we talked about that, and I just told him, I said, I don't think talking about Jewish people is really going to serve you well. It's costing you a lot of money. Maybe you can fight white supremacy or something. I don't know if this is the fight for you because it's very expensive. All right, so the Jewish community has a lot of power. Now, I'm going to ask you the next question. Who is who's the leader of the Jewish community? Who's the guy or the woman? Name that person right now. Name that one person that all the Jews turn to when they have a problem or a dilemma, or when something goes wrong, when something anti-Semitic happens, and who's the guy who's always having the press conference and speaking on behalf of the Jewish community? Can you name that person? I'm looking for a name. Give me a name. Anybody got a name? One, just give me one. Come on. One, and one. Who's the Jewish Al Sharpton? Can I get? I need one. I'm looking. I don't. Greenball. Who the hell's Greenball? Does anyone know Green Weinstein? Harvey Weinstein. That's funny. Yeah, there is none. There is no one person. There's committees. There's groups. When they all decided, they all got together and said we're going to circle around Kanye and try to destroy him financially. They did this secretly. They all got together on the phone, and it wasn't one person. It was several people that all just said we're going to shut him out. We're shutting him out of Balenciaga. We're shutting him out of Adidas. We're shutting him out of TV. We're shutting him out of music. Right? There really is no one person, and so effectively that's called institutional leadership. And again, if I did that with the Asian community, you can't name one Asian leader that represents the entire Asian community. Maybe the head of the Anti-Defamation League might be considered to be a leader, but you can't name that person. And it is also a person. It's also a title. It's not a person. It's a title that switches, like President of the United States. There is no, one person that is always going to be the head of the Anti-Defamation League. They switch it out, regularly, right? So effectively, Dr. Anderson saying we need institutional leadership. This renaissance of Black leadership must be capable of recognizing the uniqueness of the Black American dilemma, exhibit a strong group identification, and maximize the limited resources of Black people, and totally commit to practicing politics of gaining resources. So one thing that we're doing at the very least here, or at least my baby contribution to Dr. Anderson's vision, at least it's what I'm trying to do. I hope I'm doing it right. Is when I consistently remind you guys when I'm talking to you that I'm not here to teach any students. I don't have time to teach any students. I'm here to teach teachers. I'm here to teach you how to teach, because that creates a multiplier effect. If we're all in agreement on some basic ideas, like for example, in the Black Business School, we talk about the Black Core of Three. Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, support Black-owned businesses. That means even if your child goes to school, you're still going to participate in their education. You're going to be the dominant influence in their education. Hope we can agree on that. Give me a yes if we can agree on that. I hope that's broad enough that it's not going to offend anybody, that you should be the one that's the dominant intellectual influence on your children. They're your kids. They're not his kids. They're your kids. Create our own jobs. Give me a yes if we all agree that Black people are better off if we create our own jobs, so that we're not having to beg for jobs from white people. We're not here to go out here and get mistreated on the job and be stressed out constantly and be treated badly, right? Okay, create our own jobs. Okay, so we're in agreement on that. And support Black-owned businesses. How many of y'all agree that we should support Black-owned businesses? I think that we should. I love We Buy Black and all the other initiatives that are out there, diverting resources back into the Black economy. I think that's extremely important, right? So those are some basic ideas. And then also my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, which is right there on Amazon if you want to grab a copy of that. That's got 10 rules in it as well that basically just kind of say, okay, let's just find some common ideas, some basic ideas. And I'm not here to say I want you to serve my agenda. This is not the Boyce agenda. This is maybe a B1 agenda, and you can add and take away whatever you want. So if you're a Christian and you believe your children need to be Christian, then by all means, go for it. Add that into the soup, into the Kool-Aid. If you are in a certain industry, and you believe that your children should learn carpentry or whatever, add that in there. If you think that adding in maybe some issues that involve women or whatever, like it's totally fine, right? So it's basically the goal here, I think. And again, I haven't necessarily developed an institution other than the Black Business School. That's my institution. That's where I'm dedicating my life to. But generally speaking, my belief is that if we are all kind of in alignment on some level, and then all of us are taking on our individual power as individual leaders in the space that we're in, then that's a movement that's very, very difficult to kill. You know, they could kill me tomorrow. I've been flying airplanes. By the way, I just passed my exam. I'm to do a solo, so I'm going to be a solo pilot very soon. I'm still a student, but I'm official now. So I'm officially, they sent me a letter and they said, "Dear Airman." And I was like, wow, they called me an airman. That's so cool. So I'm like the Tuskegee Airman with like 1/50th of their skill. But yeah, I'm officially an airman now. And so if I go up in that airplane and God forbid one day I just don't come home, it's cool. Like I totally believe that I've connected with enough of you that whatever we started, it's not gonna stop. It's gonna go on forever because I've already tested the data. I've seen what you guys are doing with your kids, what you're creating in your own spaces, and that's going to be far more powerful than anything I could have ever done. Okay, so let's keep reading here. This renaissance of leadership must be capable of recognizing the uniqueness of the Black American dilemma. So the uniqueness of the Black American dilemma, that means specific, specific. You know, you don't want your experience to be commodified. You know, in business, you have assets or you have products that are commodities like coal. Coal is a commodity. You can get coal anywhere. Diamonds are even a commodity. You can get diamonds from different places. Oranges might be a commodity, but commodities are tough to sort of defend. They don't have as much value because they're easily replaced. What you want is something that is unique. You want something that's unique to you. So holding on to that uniqueness is preserving the value of your experience. So if you allow yourself to be commodified or to be reduced to such a state that the uniqueness of your experience is not being recognized by others, what you're doing is you're devaluing yourself. You know, if I take something that is if I have a diamond and it's a rare diamond, and it's there's only one of these out of 10 million diamonds around the world or whatever, and then somebody just says, oh, that's just another diamond, then what they're doing is they're putting it in. They're lumping it in with everything else and reducing the value of that diamond. So a person who understands the value of that diamond has to step in and say, no, 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 no. This is not a regular diamond. You can't get this at Zales or some jewelry store. This is the Zimbabwe blue diamond, right? Whatever it is, right? Something that makes it unique, something that makes it special. And so ultimately, I think that for our experience, I believe that we have to maintain the specialness and the uniqueness of our experience. We have to say, no, gay people are going through what they're going through, but that's not our experience. Some of us are gay, but the gay experience is not the Black experience. Yeah, white women, we know y'all have it hard. Your men were kind of mean to you, but that's a different experience. That's a different conversation. And I think that when you do that, that allows you to negotiate in a much more effective way. All right, so let's keep going. Serving the self-interest of Blacks will be a challenge to many leading and visible Blacks. Since well before the end of slavery, Black leaders played the role of racial diplomats, interpreting Black America's needs and framing the issues for whites in terms of what is good for everybody. As diplomats, they found it difficult to advocate solely for Blacks. The vacuum in Black leadership is growing in reverse proportion to the deepening socioeconomic crisis of Black America. Let me read it again. The vacuum of Black leadership is growing in reverse proportion. So as one goes up, one goes down. So the vacuum is getting bigger as the socioeconomic crisis is worsening. Okay, so basically they're growing in proportion. They're connected, or reverse, whatever term he wants to use. But basically he's saying that right when you need leadership, you are struggling even more. And you're struggling more because you need leadership. So the vacuum in leadership is exacerbating the very problem that leadership is supposed to solve, which actually makes sense for the most part. Though Black America is well on the road to being locked into a permanent underclass by the year 2013, again, he was predicting the future in this book. By the year 2013, leading Blacks are becoming increasingly irrelevant because they absolutely refuse to practice the politics of resources and race. So we're 10 years past the year he was predicting. He's talking about 2013. It's 2023. And I have not seen our political power growing at all. Not at all. Black leadership and their respective organizations are trapped. They have painted themselves into a corner of civil rights and integration. They have been the, quote, the hewer of wood and drawer of water, end quote. So they're carrying wood and water for every aggrieved group so long that they cannot change roles. Black leadership is being forced to represent all aggrieved groups even if it is detrimental to their own best interests. Though others practice the politics of gender, ethnicity, culture, class, and language, black leadership is prohibited from, from practicing the politics of race because nearly all the members of the other groups are classified as white. Did anybody see where there was a group of black people in Chicago that were protesting all the immigrants that they were dumping into Chicago? Anybody see that? Anybody see that? And I thought that protest was really interesting. You know, these were black folks who said, "Look, we've been in this neighborhood. This is where we live. You know, what in the hell? Why are you dropping all this in our neighborhood? You know, if you want it, you can put them in your neighborhood, but not don't put them in ours." And and I think that was noble of them to speak up on that. You know, I don't understand everything that's going on there. I know that people get their feelings hurt when you're honest about immigration, but you know, I don't know who came up with this idea that we're supposed to just open the border to any and everybody that's going to take resources that they're already denying to us. I know that in my experience, when I go through places like Chicago, I see a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities that could have belonged to blacks, that used to belong to blacks, that no longer belong to black people. And I don't think there's any I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't speak up on that. So let's keep going. Oh, and another thing that happened this week that was really interesting, that really shows diversity of perspective. Joe Biden gave the commencement address at Howard University, and you see some of the students at Howard were waking up. You know, they're not falling for the indoctrination. And again, I'm not saying that everybody should dislike Joe Biden. I don't care who you vote for in the next election, but if you have an issue with him, yeah, I think you should. You know, I think mass incarceration is a good enough reason to have an issue. And again, I can also tell you that when I was working with Ice Cube and they were speaking with the Biden administration directly, they made promises. They did to him, they did to Ice Cube, but they did to a lot of what they do to a lot of black folks when they stand up. They make promises and then they don't keep them. I think that is unethical. I think that's unethical. I don't think that should be just sort of swept under the rug. Specifically, I remember him telling me, and I gotta hit him up again and talk to him and ask him to get specifics on this. I remember him saying that they told him that they would talk to him about black issues after the election. The election happened in 2020. Nobody ever called after that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to check with Cube again to find out if they followed up. But last time I checked with him, I texted him. I said, "Did they ever reach out to you?" He said, "No." So they lied to you. They lied to you. And I'm trying to figure out who told you that it's okay for them to just play you like Boo Boo the Fool every time. Seriously, really, that makes me want to say, okay, well, if we're talking about equality, then I'm gonna treat you like you treat me. Yeah, I'm gonna vote for you. Yeah, I'll be there. I got souls to the polls, y'all. I'm gonna be there. All right, booties to the polls. We gonna be right after church. We going to vote right after church, everybody, and then just not show up. Just not show up. That's what I'm gonna do. You lie to me, I'm gonna lie to you. You disrespect me, I'm gonna disrespect you. You don't give me nothing, I'm not gonna give you nothing. Why is that a radical concept? What is so radical about me saying I'm gonna treat you exactly the way you treat me? I'm gonna prioritize you exactly the way you prioritize me. That there's nothing crazy about that. And it's kind of weird that people think, oh my God, that's so radical. How could you say that, Dr. What's wrong? Like, because that's common sense. I'm not telling you to vote for it. I'm just simply saying that if you think that this is weird, you're not alone. There are millions of people who are very politically conscious who are saying this is stupid. This game does not make sense. So let me keep reading here. He says, serving the self-interest of blacks will be a challenge to many leading and visible blacks. He mentions that. Okay, so let me jump forward. He says, black leadership and their respective organizations are trapped. He mentioned they painted themselves into a corner. He says, also, trapped within their own traditions, black leadership has little choice but to continue minority coalition building and the politics of rights. If practicing the politics of rights reap great wealth and power benefits, then powerful groups would devote most of their time, energy, and resources into this aspect of politics. But the little attention they do give is solely to contest weak and powerless groups. There is no question that all black Americans are indebted to the black leaders who have fought hard on behalf of black America throughout the nation's history. Most of them struggled and did the best they could with what little they had available to them. But times have changed. Black Americans' competitors are no longer just white males. They are ethnic, religious, gender, handicap, language, class, and groups concerned about sexual orientation. Black Americans' competitiveness is weakened by the fact that these groups are allowed to emulate and wrap themselves in black people's historical experiences so that they can be perceived as being equally as aggrieved as blacks. You follow that? You follow that? That's them making you into a commodity. That's everybody taking, almost like stealing somebody's trademark. You know, you make a song and then everybody's using your song for their commercial. They should be paying you a fee or something. They, you know, or you make a movie and everybody takes credit for your movie. You write a book, somebody takes your book. So he says, Black America's competitiveness is weakened by the fact that these groups emulate. I already mentioned that. This means blacks must compete for resources where they ought not even have any competitors. So he says you're eating inside a crowded restaurant where you're the only person who's supposed to be served in that restaurant. But instead, because you let everybody in, your leaders let everybody into the restaurant, you got to fight to get a couple of scraps. Our new black leadership will need a group-based vision. It will have to see without straining that integration is a tragic failure and is leading Black America into a crisis. It must understand that blacks are just as impoverished and powerless as ever. But to make matters worse, blacks have been stripped of their quasi-communities, businesses, colleges, culture, disposable income, and majority-minority status in mainstream society, in large measure because of decisions black leaders made. The black race is more vulnerable than ever. Black Americans need the type of committed leadership that they had between 1920 and 1940. During this time, blacks had great leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Carter G. Woodson, Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, who were proud of being black and advocated a sense of public blackness for all people of African descent. They did not hide their black self-interest behind a facade of labels like colorblind, race neutral, multicultural, diversity, or minority. They were not like so many blacks who seek to represent everybody except their own people. Most visible blacks or blacks aspiring to public office still adhere to the old social etiquette that required blacks to publicly disavow any group self-interest. The newspapers and magazines were filled with stories about blacks who espouse a colorblind ideology but are burdened by race issues. There are stories about black elected officials who successfully avoided being perceived as a black candidate who addressed the needs of their black constituents. Many of the elected officials in these stories are mayors in predominantly black cities who boast that they are effectively neutered on race issues. Their indifference to their own people defeats the whole purpose of politics and being elected to hold a public office. How can a black person justify running for office to represent the majority white society? It was black people who have lacked political representation and access to public resources and public office for more than 360 years. When whites make up 99% of all public elected officials in America, why would black elected officials conclude that the majority white society had a greater need for representation than underrepresented blacks? Well, I think that connects to the money. I think that's where the economics comes into play because it costs money to run for these offices. And I'm curious to see, I really fundamentally like the new mayor of Chicago. And the reason I like him, I like who he is. Now, do I like him as the mayor? That's yet to be determined. But I like who he is because I saw him years ago before he was heavy into politics. And he was one of the few black people in the community that openly challenged Rahm Emanuel in his policies way back in like 2013, 2014. I think it was before he knew he was going to be a big shot, before he knew he was going to be the mayor of Chicago. I'm curious to see how much of the real him gets let out while he's in office. I'm firmly convinced that if I sat down and talked to him, he would understand everything that we're talking about. I think he could sit right here in this room and appreciate all the ideas that we're sharing. But the problem is, going back to when I was explaining to you, that it's hard to do what you want to do when you're working for somebody else. You know, if your family needs food and you are a Burger King employee, you don't really have access to food for your family. You just have the appearance of having access to food because Burger King management is deciding what you're going to do with the food that's in your hand. They're going to tell you every time you try to grab food and you say, my cousin is hungry, I'm going to give my cousin a burger and my mama a chicken sandwich. They're going to say, no, you can't do that. You have to serve the customers who are paying the money. You can't serve your family if they ain't got no money. So the black community has leaders who are wearing Burger King uniforms. And instead of Burger King uniforms, these uniforms say Democrat or Republican. just like McDonald's and Burger King, just like Coke and Pepsi, and that you come in the restaurant and you say, "Hey, cuz, hook me up with some food, man. You know, we're hungry over here." And they say, "I'm sorry, I can only serve the paying customers." So it doesn't matter if your cousin cares about you, or had your back when he was unemployed like you were. Now he got a job. Now he's up here. You're down here. He's management. He's the night manager at the Burger King, and he's following the rules. He's trying not to get fired, and you're here. So the question becomes, is he willing to break the rules of Burger King and sneak you some food? Because that's really what your problem is. I don't doubt that there are so many black people, and I've talked to them. I've been around I've been around elite people for a long time. That's why I got away from the nonsense, because it was stupid to me, and I figured it out. I said, and again, because I just understand money very well, I said, oh, I get it. You have things you want to do, but you've been trained to almost code switch, where you can only be black in certain scenarios, and then there are other scenarios where you got to leave your blackness at the door, or you end up ostracized. Remember, when I came to the public and I became a public scholar, it wasn't as if white people wanted me at their universities, right? It's not like I had, I was on the faculty of Syracuse University for 13 years and all that, but by the time I had gone on TV and spoke all that pro-black stuff, every university was afraid of me, even though I had more credentials than most of the faculty on those campuses. And even though they would say, "Oh, we want diversity and all that," that's a bunch of BS. Because diversity in skin color is easy. It's easy to hire a black person who does what you want, who does what white guys do, who fits in with white people. It's very hard to hire a black person who comes in with ideas that are very different from your own. I completely understand it, to be honest with you. I'm not even mad about it, because power is a very difficult thing to share. Power is something that people almost never share unless they're crazy or stupid. And so basically what I'm going to really tell you is that when you have these reparations conversations and all that, you're going to have to really understand that when you play that power game, it's a whole different ball game. That, people get mad at you, they're going to fight you, they're going to fight dirty. That's kind of what you do to protect power. And they're not going to give it to you. They're not going to they don't give you things just because it's the right thing to do. Since when did this country ever do something because it was the right thing to do? No. You have to make it the right thing to do by forcing them into that corner, whatever that looks like. It might mean withholding your vote. It might mean withholding your money. It might mean withholding your affection. It might mean more protesting or whatever, if that's what it comes to. But you're gonna have to do something, because you just sit there and say, hey, just you'll pay me when you can. Hey, it's not gonna work. Like imagine, like, with this government. Remember, I showed you guys how the government has $31 trillion in debt. They're way too deep in debt. It shouldn't be 31 trillion. It should be maybe more like 15 trillion or something like that. So they're way too deep in debt. The deficit is insanely high. So imagine that you have a friend that owes you. They're supposed to be your friend, right? But they owe you like $40,000. And this person is making, I don't know, let's say they're making $40,000 a year, and they are $180,000 in debt, and they're living below their means. So their expenses are higher than their income. And so this person owes you 40 grand, and you know it, you got all the proof. And you say to them, hey, when you get the time, when you get the money, can you pay me back? Do you think they're going to give you your money back? Think about this. They're not in a position to give you your money back. Give me a yes or no. Do you think they're going to pay you? If you say, hey, I don't want to bother you, but hey, if you get some extra money, I'd like for you to kind of start making payments on that 40 grand you owe me, right? Do you think they're going to do it? No. They're not. They really can't. They can, but they can't, right? See, gangsters understand this, right? They can, but they can't. Like they can't, because you see their situation. They don't make that much. They're deep in debt. Their expenses are insane. They got all this other stuff they have to pay for, right? So if you come in and you say, hey, just pay me when you can, I know you're my friend, and I'll keep working for you. I'll keep helping you out, but I just kind of need you to, like, pay me when you can. But they're going to put you at the back of the priority list because you're not demanding anything. So what does a loan shark do when a guy that doesn't make that much money owes him a lot of money? Right? What does he do? He shows up and he says, if you don't pay me, I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to break both of your legs. And then if you don't pay him, he'll say, okay, we're going to kill one of your family members, right? Seriously, like, I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not advocating any of that. But basically, he kind of says, it's not my problem. Like, don't tell me about all your financial problems when I tell you about a legitimate debt that you have that you owe me. You need to find some way to put me to the front of the priority list because, as Bernard says here, that's a great term, pressure. I'm going to put pressure on you, and I'm not going to really listen to your problem. That's your problem. You solve the problem because if you don't solve the problem, then there are going to be consequences. You're going to get your legs broken. You might not have a mother on Tuesday, whatever, right? I'm not advocating for any of that. I know this isn't a funny example, but it's accurate, right? The pressure has to be put on them. So maybe the pressure politically could be, I know you guys are struggling with the money, but if you want the black vote to show up, you better pay black people. You better put us at the top of that priority list. You better figure it out. And because when people get forced to solve a problem, they solve the problem. But if you allow them to give their problem to you, then they're going to be able to hold you off. They're going to be able to rob you of your birthright. They're going to be able to take what's yours. It's like if you ever, just so you know, if you ever run a company and you have people that work for you, and you pay them, I don't know, let's say it's $1,000 a week, and you ask them to get a job done and they don't get it done, and they give you all these excuses why it's not done. Believe me, they're not going to want excuses when it's time to pay them their money. So that's what I do. So the relationship I have whenever I pay a contractor or anybody is I say, okay, I hear your excuses for why you didn't get the job done. So if you keep doing that, then I'm going to give you excuses for why I can't pay you. My excuse for why I can't pay you is because you didn't solve your own problem. You brought the problem to me, which adds double stress on me. Not only am I out of the money I got to pay you, but also I got to solve your problem. That's not going to work, buddy. That's not going to work. You solve your problem and you pay me, and then I'll make sure, or you do what you got to do and I'll do what I'm supposed to do. And then that's a good relationship. So effectively, a good political relationship in America for black people is one that's very basic. They do what they're supposed to do and do right by you, and then you show up and you can vote. You can vote for whoever you want. Vote for the people that support your interests. Right? It's supposed to work that way. There's nothing radical about anything that I said, but you're going to have to put pressure on them. If you don't put pressure on them, they're not going to respond. And politicians understand this. In fact, sometimes they wonder why you don't put pressure on them. And I think some of it's because you've been taught to be very docile. I think black people are taught to be very cooperative. We don't want to rock the boat. Some people think I'm the biggest asshole on the planet because of the things that I say. And I just, the benefit is I never really fit in anyway, so I don't care about fitting in. I want you to do right by me. And if you don't, then that's not fair to me. Right. So anyway, let me keep reading here. All right. So by the way, some of you asked about the convention. The All Black National Convention is October 20th through the 22nd. You can learn, you get some information, go to allblacknationalconvention.com. It's going to be in Atlanta at the Marriott Marquis Hotel. Some of the themes we're going to hit on this year at the convention are reparations, artificial intelligence. That's going to be a big one. We're going to bring some experts on that. We always like to hit relationships, some of this crazy gender war. We like to bring in people that help us create healthy relationships, things like that. And of course, economics and opportunities for you to grow, financially, whatever that looks like for you. And so if you'd like to join us at the convention, it's so much fun. It's like a big family reunion of B1 people from around the world. So if you'd like to learn more, just go to allblacknationalconvention.com, allblacknationalconvention.com. On that page, you can get a pass for your family. You can also, if you want to be a vendor, you have a business, the vendors do very, very well. They make a ton of money. If you want to sponsor, there are things you can sponsor. If you want to speak or be on a panel, there are panel. We're actually taking applications for people that want to be on panels. Just fill out the form one time and and just let us know what you can do. And if we can find a space for you on a panel, we will. So the convention will be October 20th in Atlanta. I think this is our 8th convention. And since we're in Atlanta, I got to call, I'm going to call Killer Mike and David Banner again. They came to the first convention and did a really great job. And I really like those guys a lot. So I think I'm going to try to involve them. And Rick Mathis is going to show the new film that we just created called B1 the Movie. So I'm super excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. So anyway, let me keep going. All right. Political action step number 20. Let me finish reading this. Okay. Blacks holding public office should use the power of the office to address the wealth and resource power inequalities that exist between the races, problems that white office holders do not usually address. Everything else is secondary. If black socioeconomic issues are not addressed by black officials or any other black person who is in a position to assist, then who does have the responsibility in a representative democracy? The primary responsibility of a black person in a leadership position should be to represent and reflect a cosmetic commitment to his group. Otherwise, the only benefit black voters gain from electing a black person to office is simply the emotional thrill of having a person with black skin holding public office. So you got your cousin a job at Burger King, but that don't mean you get to eat the food. You know, you're just proud that your cousin is working at Burger King. Like you're proud that he's the shift manager or whatever. But that's it. You just get symbolism, right? Okay, so let's read here. This is Powernomics, page 221. This is a book by Dr. Claude Anderson. His website is powernomics.com. We're almost done with chapter 7. The last part, political action step number 12. And this is actually something we tapped on in B1 the movie too. So this is a good one. Adopt a public code of conduct for group accountability. Whew, this is a tough one. Accountability is a really controversial topic in the black community. Some people don't want to be accountable for anything. In politics, the temptation is strong to promise things that cannot be delivered or to sacrifice a constituency group for selfish reasons. Black Americans must devise a group code of conduct, role models, and means to hold people accountable for how they treat black people. Elected officials should be the first group of whom blacks demand accountability. It is especially important for them to hold responsible those blacks who demonstrate more concern for the broader society and its institutions than for the collective interests of black people. Listed below are some strategies black groups have employed to hold public figures accountable. Let's see here. To hold public figures accountable to the group. Wait, hold on. I lost my page here. Hold on. Oh, accountable. Here we go. Okay. Number 1, denounce blacks who displayed inappropriate behavior, staged public protests, and labeled them Sambos. So that's one thing. So public protests or calling out black people who act a fool or embarrass the community, you can decide what that looks like. They ostracized blacks who demonstrated inappropriate behavior and imposed social, political, and economic sanctions on them. Publicize the inappropriate behavior. Some community activists circulated flyers and placed pictures of the offending blacks on yard signs, posters, and walls of shame. Presented Hayward Shepherd Awards to those who practiced inappropriate behavior. Hayward Shepherd was a black man who tried to warn the town of Harper's Ferry of John Brown's arrival in town to free the black slaves. Brown's raiders killed him, but whites honored Shepherd with a monument. So Shepherd was a guy where literally, has anybody heard of Hayward Shepherd? Give me a yes if you've heard of the Hayward Shepherd story. It's kind of crazy. Hayward Shepherd was a guy who got one of the meritorious manumission awards. And effectively what happened was when John Brown came to Harper's Ferry to free the slaves and he was going to start a revolt, apparently Hayward Shepherd was the guy who told the settlers in the town that this guy was coming to free the slaves. And they built a statue for Hayward Shepherd, and that statue was in that town up until the 1960s. Like that statue was up there for a couple hundred years, literally. So that's funny, a Hayward Shepherd Award. And I know my friend Vicky Dillard, she has something called the what does she call it? The Kuhn Award. Yeah, the Meritorious Manumission Butter Biscuit Award. And I liked her trophy so much, I got one myself. So I don't give it out because I don't want to be mean. But yeah, this is a little dog and a raccoon. So yeah, so that's kind of funny. Shout out to Vicky Dillard. She's at FlyNewbie and QueenTV.com, by the way. She's a good friend of mine, and I have so much respect for her. All right, so anyway, oppose contracts, jobs, political appointments, or public recognition to those who exhibited inappropriate behavior patterns. Whether or not a community adopts any of the above measures, blacks should establish organizations that protect the race and hold members accountable for their behaviors. Holding people accountable to the black community will be tough. It is not for the faint of heart. Blacks must develop a pattern of exacting consequences on those who betray or attempt to profit by imposing pain and suffering on other black people. This is the only guaranteed way to stop inappropriate political behavior. So the conclusion of this chapter, this is chapter 7 in Powernomics, page 222. He says politics is competition for essential resources. That's what politics is. Those who play politics to get along will usually end up being gotten. The Powernomics political principles direct blacks to rebuild communities, maintain population numbers, develop competitive human capital, secure resources to support an alternative economy, and ensures social justice. For blacks to benefit from our block vote, we must demand that candidates react to black issues and problems and not convert them to minority problems. We should demand that black leaders be black, and that all those who seek black votes recognize and respect us as a group to which this nation owes a debt. Politics is played based on group self-interest, not altruism. In our new politics, everybody must be held accountable via an array of rewards and penalties, aka carrots and sticks. So what y'all think? Did y'all enjoy that chapter? I thought that was good. I'm happy with Dr. Anderson. And we've been reading this book for like almost a couple of years now, I think. I don't know when we started. But by the way, if you ever want to get like the recordings of all these trainings that we've done, just go to drboycebookclub.com. And there is a fee, but it's to raise money for the Black Business School. But feel free to grab that, and I think it would be good to listen to, in your car or something like that. So feel free to take a look at that, drboycebookclub.com. And also, if you want to join us in Dallas in a couple of days, I'll be there on May 19th. We're going to do a 2-day Black Wealth Summit. The whole focus is on the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. That's my new book. And I'm super proud of the book because you guys liked it a lot, and the reviews are really good, and it's doing really well on Amazon. And in fact, let me see here. We can quickly, I'll quickly list what the 10 Commandments are, so that if you don't want to read the book, you'll at least know what the commandments are. Now, I'll go into detail with each one in terms of application and the nuance of it, but I'll just read it to you. It's fine. Commandment number 1: always be an asset to your family. We have a lot of families that struggle because the people don't understand the importance of being an asset to those you love. A good measuring stick that I give our oldest is, I say, if you're a man, everybody, if you're a man, every person at that funeral, when you die, should say my life is better because of that man. If you have people at your funeral who are traumatized because you were around, because you were beating your wife and stealing from people and just just a bastard and abandoning your responsibilities, that's not a man. Now, obviously, women have a different standard. I'm not a woman, so I can't tell women how to be women, but I think that there's something similar there. If everyone just shows up and says, how can I be an asset? How can I be of help? I think our families will be stronger. I think that our groups and communities will be stronger. And so one of the reasons that we're doing the event in Dallas, now someone asked about Brooklyn. I'm going to see if we can go to Brooklyn. Honestly, because of the health issues of my family, my parents, I have to kind of attend to that right now. But we'll do some of this at the convention. So the All Black National Convention may be my next event, to be honest with you. But anyway, the reason we do these events is so you can meet other people who think the same way, because then at that point you can adopt the family members that you want. You can work with people who understand these basic ideas, and you can build things together, right? So that's a good way to make friends and connect with people, is to find people who have interests that are similar to yours. And I know your interest in this stuff is strong because you're here, right? So other people that are going to be in Dallas and some of the other events, or at the convention in October in Atlanta, they're just people that think the same way you do. So I encourage you to not overlook that and see that as an opportunity to connect with like-minded people. And my website, boycewatkins.com, there's information about all of that right there. All right, so number 2 is buy black whenever possible. Buying black is key to our survival, and I'd like to break down exactly what buying black does for the black economy. Number 3 is that black wealth training should be a rite of passage. By the age of 12, every black child should know how to start a business. They should know how to buy real estate. They should also own stock. They shouldn't just know how to buy stock. They should actually own it. And that's up to you as the parent to decide if that's something that you want to do with your children. Let's see, number 4, create fertile economic soil for your family. One of the things that I found when we're in the black business, all we focus on is black people. We kind of do black people one-on-one, and that's what all of our science is all about. We found that a lot of black businesses and a lot of black wealth doesn't get built because there's bad soil. Bad soil is like similar to trying to grow a flower in a desert. If you try to grow a flower in a desert, it's not really going to grow. And so effectively, the idea of creating fertile economic soil means creating conditions that are going to not just create wealth and help people grow wealth, but if somebody's starting a baby business, creating the conditions that maximize the possibility and the probability of success of that business. So that is a conscious thing that requires consciousness. It requires maybe dealing with some generational curses that might have put some toxins in the soil, so that you're more likely to achieve your economic goals as a family. Number 5 is invest in healthy relationships and maintain them. And then we talk about the theory of relationships and why relationship management is one of the most overlooked aspects of wealth building, one of the most overlooked aspects. Someone asked, are you going to put it in an audio book? I might at some point. I mean, especially with AI and everything, maybe I can clone my voice or something and just do it like that. Honestly, writing books takes a long time. That's why I love Dr. Anderson, because he took all this time to write Powernomics. I don't know if I have that kind of patience. I like talking and teaching in this way, but writing a book, I mean, it takes a lot of time, a lot of research, everything else. So I wrote this book. Maybe it'll be audio book, but hopefully, if I live long enough, it will be. And at some point, I'll do that. All right. So let's see. Number six, keep it all in the family whenever possible. So being strategic and being conscious about where you aim your power is really important when it comes to wealth. It's just like a gun. You know, if I have a gun and I'm not conscious about where I'm aiming the gun, I'm going to shoot myself. I'm going to shoot somebody I care about. I'm going to hurt somebody. But if I'm conscious, then a gun can be a great asset. Or fire. If you're conscious about controlling and managing a fire, you get out of control and burn everything down. And Hugh says he read the book and it's great. Yeah, if you read the book and you liked it, say something in the chat so others will know that it's worthwhile. I didn't, this is, I put my foot in this. This is the best book I've ever written. I have other books, the Black American Money series and things like that, and the New Black Power 1 and 2, all that's on Amazon. This is my latest book, and this is the book I'm most proud of. This is my most mature piece of work in the sense that there are things that I understand now that I did not understand 20 years ago when I got my PhD. And when I got my PhD, I was pretty smart at finance. Like I understood economics really well, but now I'm 51 and I know so many things now that I didn't know, say 10 years ago. Have I thought about writing a book about Chat GPT-4? No, but I am studying artificial intelligence extensively. AI is going to be one of the topics that we're going to do panels on and trainings at the All Black National Convention. So if you want to join us, the passes are discounted right now. We are going to sell out because we limit the space. We don't want a gigantic convention with thousands of people. We only want a few hundred people because we like the family atmosphere. So the tickets are almost out. Last year's convention was so good. Everybody pretty much bought up at least half of the tickets were sold at the last convention. So you may want to jump in now, but it's totally up to you. All right, so let's see. Number seven. Capital must be preserved, protected, and efficiently used. That's when we talk about capital and what capital is, what it represents. When we talk about NBA star Ja Morant, I don't think he understands that his money isn't just a bunch of cash flow. He's supposed to go blow at the strip club or spend on new shoes. His money is capital. Capital forms a base. It forms economic protection for people that you care about. It allows your grandchildren to never have to get up and go to work again. Think about how differently your life would be if you never ever had to go to work. Think about all the trauma we go through just from the stress of getting up, going to work, coming home, going to bed, getting up, going to work, coming home, going to bed, and barely hanging on financially. If you had a capital base, none of that would exist. You could literally, truly get to the business of really living the that you can live. So we talk about capital, what it looks like. The fact that every black family, everybody's born a millionaire. You may not believe that, but I show you specifically why you're born a millionaire. And I explain it not in some goofy way to make you feel good. I say it in a way that's mathematically true, right? You just have to see where the wealth is. Number eight, always plant seeds for the future. That's just investing, man. I mean, you know, uh, typically wealth and power is controlled by people who make a plan for it in the past. That's planting seeds for the future is literally one of the great keys. If you're constantly planting seeds for the future, then you're going to have a great future, and your children are going to have a great future. Anybody affiliated with you is going to have a great future. Anything good in my life right now, I can trace back to things I did in 1990, 1989, that literally affect the life that I'm living right now, right? So planting seeds for the future should be a cultural habit. This is not just something that is just related to money. It's everything, health, all that stuff, right? In fact, when they measured the most productive and most powerful, successful cultures in the world, this Yale professor, it was an unscientific study, but she concluded that the Nigerians have the best culture in terms of success. Now, obviously, no culture is perfect, and we know the Nigerian culture ain't perfect. I'm 33% Nigerian, 40% actually, 40% Nigerian. So I'm gonna take some pride in that. But one thing they said about the Nigerian culture is that the culture is strong because they have three things, and see if I can remember what the three things were. It was a commitment to education, a sense of pride in who you are, like almost like a arrogance in a way. Like I'm Nigerian, I'm proud to be, Igbo or whatever it is, right? And then also a commitment to delayed gratification. That simply means you sacrifice for the future. That means that you're more likely to invest. You're not trying to have it all right now, and that is a beautiful conclusion in comparison to the culture that we see around us. Everybody talks about the culture, and they're usually talking about things like hip hop culture and all that. Well, that culture encourages instant gratification. And instant gratification is, if you look at a person who engages in nothing but instant gratification, typically their whole life is a complete mess. You might be talking about some guy with 7 babies mamas and can't afford to pay the child support, obese because he's eating whatever he feels like eating, broke because he never invested in having a good career, making money, never saved anything, never invested anything. People who engage in instant gratification tend to be people who almost live a life so bad that they almost become like drug addicts. The drug of instant gratification has you so strung out that your whole life is a mess, and you're looking ridiculous. So planting seeds for the future is about delayed gratification and breaking that down. Number 9, always leaving a worthy inheritance. Understanding that wealth is an intergenerational phenomenon. There is no one generation that builds all the wealth and controls all the wealth. Everything you build is for the next generation, and you get to use it while you're here, and then you pass it on, right? But you have to be a steward of those assets. You have to develop something, right? Most of what we have around us, even when I drive on the freeways, I think about how much time was spent building the entire freeway system by people in the 1950s. Or you go into a skyscraper and you say, man, they built this building in 1895 or in 1922. You think about the thousands of hours of labor that came into building that building, right? So effectively, talking about inheritance is really important because it's a matter of also confronting the culture that says that it's okay for a man to die and for his children to have to, use a GoFundMe account to pay for his funeral. That should be shamed. We should really look at that, and not to the point where you have to be mean about it, but to say, oh, that's not how we operate. That's not how we live. Again, what are people going to say about you at your funeral? Are they going to, secretly whisper about how you didn't do anything for those people behind you? Or are they going to say, wow, I'm really proud of this woman or this man because they really stood up for the people that they cared about? And then number 10 is ownership, all about ownership, how ownership is the key to power. Stop measuring economic success of your friends and family by what kind of job they have or how much money they make. Those are secondary measures of economic success. That is simply a measure of economic potential. Having the fancy job and making the high income means that you certainly do have opportunities to get to the real goal. The real goal, though, is wealth. It's positive net worth. It's developing a surplus, living below your means, taking that extra surplus, capitalizing that surplus so that it then becomes a capital base that then allows you to have the freedom and flexibility to do whatever you want. If a family takes the things that we talk about right here in this space and they apply that to their children, then all their children will be retired by the age of 40 or 45 years old and be able to live their absolute best life. They will be mentally healthy, physically healthy, financially healthy, relationship healthy, and literally be able to live in a space that a lot of us are not familiar with. So I encourage you to be very conscious about these things. Again, the book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. Do not buy my book until you buy Dr. Anderson's books. Dr. Claude Anderson, he's the godfather. He's the top priority. That's the man that I submit to in every way. When I do what I do, I am not the man. He is the man. I'm kind of the man next to the man, or whatever it is. But after you check out Dr. Anderson's books, feel free to check out my book too. And I think it's going to make a difference in your life. And I'd appreciate if you leave a review also. Also, we'll be in Dallas May 19th. I'll be there in a couple of days. So feel free to fly down to Dallas. You can go to boycewatkins.com to learn more about that. The All Black National Convention is October 20th in Atlanta. One day during our session, I'll talk to you guys and ask you suggestions on what we should do for the convention, because I really want to hear your inputs as well. All right, so Pamela says, tell Dr. Anderson we love him. I will. Lynn says, will it be the All Black Conference be a hybrid, partly virtual? Yes, we will have a virtual component as well, for sure. If you can come physically, that's really the best, honestly, because you can shake hands and hug people, but we understand some of you can't make it, so that's totally fine too. All right, so anyway, I'm going to head on out of here. I hope this was beneficial to you. It was great talking to you. God bless all of you, and please have a good night, and I'll see you guys later. Take care. Next week. Bye-bye.